All right, let's jump right in. We're going to take a look at one of the most significant texts in all of history, the Bible. And look, no matter what you personally believe, its influence is just undeniable. So in this explainer, we're going to break down what it is, how it came to be, and why on earth it has lasted for thousands of years. Just to give you a sense of the sheer scale we're talking about, look at this number. The Bible has been translated into more than 3,000 languages. Seriously, no other book even comes close to that kind of global reach. It has found its way across pretty much every cultural and geographical line you can think of. And all that reach? Well, it's led to some pretty profound influence. We're not just talking about a religious text here. It's a cultural cornerstone that has literally shaped art, law, literature, you name it, for centuries. Its ideas and stories are just woven into the fabric of societies all over the world. Which brings us to the big question, right? With all this history, all this influence, what is this book actually about? What's inside? Well, that's exactly why we're here. We're going to try to look past some of the noise and get right to its core structure and its story. Okay, so the first thing you have to get your head around is its basic structure. And here's the key. Don't think of the Bible as one single book. It's much more helpful to think of it as a library, a whole collection of ancient books written over a really, really long time. And this library basically has two main sections, the Old Testament and the New Testament. You can also think of these as the Old and New Covenants. A covenant is just a sacred agreement. The Old Testament is mostly about God's covenant with the nation of Israel. Then, the New Testament shifts the focus completely, centering on the life of Jesus Christ and the new covenant that he brings. And if you look at this table, you can see just how diverse this library is. The Protestant Bible, for example, has 66 books in total. You've got 39 in the Old Testament, with everything from law and history to poetry and prophecy. Then the New Testament adds another 27 books, which include accounts of Jesus' life, the Gospels, a bunch of letters, and even what's called apocalyptic literature. It's an incredibly varied collection. So, if it's a library with 66 different books, you might be wondering, what holds it all together? Well, the answer is a single, massive story that weaves its way through from the very first page to the very last. Let's trace that big narrative arc. You can actually break this whole story down into 4 major acts. It starts with creation, and then humanity's fall from that perfect state. Act 2 is all about God setting up covenants and sending prophets who foretell a rescue mission. Act 3 delivers on that promise. It's the story of redemption through Jesus and the beginning of the church. And it all leads to the final act, the promise that one day everything will be fully restored. So how in the world did this ancient library even make it to today? I mean, the journey of these texts is a mind-boggling story all by itself. We're talking thousands of years, multiple empires, and some absolutely huge technological changes. This timeline really puts the epic scale of it all into perspective. You've got the first texts being written way back around 1000 BC. Then you have crucial moments like the Septuagint translation, the New Testament books being finalized into an official collection or canon, then the absolute game changer with the printing press, and all the way up to the incredible discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in the 20th century. Let's talk about the Septuagint for a second, because this was a huge deal. It was a Greek translation of the Hebrew scriptures, what Christians now call the Old Testament. This made those texts available to the whole world, not just people who could read Hebrew. In fact, it was the version most early Christians used, and it's even quoted by the guys who wrote the New Testament. Now, let's fast forward a couple thousand years. The discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in 1947 was just massive for historians. These were ancient manuscripts from before the time of Jesus, and they showed that the Old Testament texts had been copied and passed down with an incredible amount of accuracy over all those centuries. And then came the revolution. Before Gutenberg's printing press, Bibles were incredibly rare. They had to be copied by hand, which took forever. The press changed everything. It turned the Bible into the world's first mass-produced book. Suddenly, regular people could have access to it, which fueled enormous movements, like the Protestant Reformation. Okay, so this brings us to our final question. Why has this collection of ancient writings stuck around with such tenacity? Let's quickly touch on some of the arguments and the evidence that people point to for its authenticity and its reliability. So supporters point to a few different things. First, there's just the massive number of early manuscripts for the New Testament, way more than any other ancient text. Second, archaeology has uncovered things like the Tel Dan Inscription, which backs up historical details. Third, you've got non-biblical historians like Josephus who mention key people and events. And finally, there's the fact that it tells one consistent story, even though it was written by over 40 authors across 1,500 years. Beyond all the arguments about evidence, there's just the simple, stubborn fact of its survival. Throughout history, powerful rulers and entire empires have tried to stamp it out, persecute its followers, and destroy the text itself. The fact that it's still here after all of that is often pointed to as a sign of its unique resilience. And that's where we'll leave it. From a collection of ancient scrolls to the most translated book on the planet, the Bible's journey is just unparalleled. So the final question I want to leave you with is this. After thousands of years of history, translation, and intense scrutiny, why does this ancient library continue to speak so powerfully to so many people all over the world today?